Hey, everybody, welcome back. I just wanted to conclude the conversation about options and to just, I feel like I'd be remiss if we were talking about options and not to understand just a little bit about option valuation. So as expected, as we know, finance is a valuation subject, and we did valuation when we did time value. There were values in there, and that's what we did when we calculated certain things that were appropriate to the conversation at the time, get future value or present value of something. Then we did bond valuation, right? The discounted cash flow model. We did stock valuation by two or three different methods. One was a dividend discount model, one was a PE ratio, one was a dividend yield. So when we get to options, it's no surprise that we would have an option valuation model. So what happened was years ago, these two finance professors, one, his last name is Black and the other one's last name is Scholes. I think they were from the University of Chicago. When options really started to get onto the market, they were, wait a minute, this is back in the 70s. We need to be able to understand, we see what the premiums are when you look at the option chain, but what is the option worth? I mean, you remember we talked about the intrinsic value and the time premium. So it really needed work. So what they came up with was the Black-Scholes option pricing model. Okay, so what is this? The test question on the final will be, what is Black-Scholes? And right here, I just went to Google and Googled it. Black-Scholes, Merton, this other guy started to chime in on it. I think Fisher Black is dead. You guys, just incidentally, when they put this model together, they were circulating it around the investment community and the academic community, and they said it's so theoretical, it's got so much calculus in it that it really wouldn't be worth very much as a practical matter. Well, later on, it was found that it's very much worth something, and they won the Nobel Prize for putting this thing together. So it's got quite a following. And it's a pricing model for options. Okay, it's used for valuation of stock options. It's that simple. So what I want us to know, if you took a graduate program in finance and you took a graduate program in derivatives, you would be using this quite a bit. You'd have to calculate it all quite a bit. And if you went to at UNO, if you went to the doctoral program in finance, I took the class. It's all calculus based. It's a derivative program, and it's got a lot of calculus in it, and your head explodes. It doesn't take long. So what I wanted us to understand was, first of all, there is a valuation of options. It's Black-Scholes. What I just circled right here is, what the model is. And I'll talk a little bit about that. This is not going to take long. But I also want to add, there are 5 things that determine an options price. Okay, and we know some of those intuitively when I say them. So what starts moving in the market and the option price starts moving, the premium starts moving? Well, what are the 5 things? Well, one is the price of the stock. Okay, so we could the 5 things that determine an options price. So we could say the stock price. And then against that, what's the first thing you do with options? You would compare that against a strike price. We can have the time to maturity. I'm just going to put time. I'm going to be lazy about it. We could have the risk-free rate, because we know that time and money go together. And then lastly, guys, it's going to be the standard deviation, the volatility of the asset. Okay, so the standard deviation of how the option price moves in relation to the stock. So here are your 5 things that determine an options price. And if you're looking up here, they're baked into that. Okay, so the price of the stock, the spot price of an asset, the price of the stock is S. They say S of sub T. That's okay. Then you have the strike price, you have the risk-free rate, you have the time to maturity, and you have the volatility. So all of these things here are baked into this equation. And if you calculated the whole thing, you would look on Yahoo or something and see, well, okay, an option is trading at $1 or $100, as you know. And this calculation would help you understand is that, and the professionals that do this, they have handheld calculators, believe it or not, that calculate this for them under any contract they're looking to buy. So if you're looking at one on Yahoo Finance and it's selling for $1, well, what would happen if the contract is actually worth $1.10? Well, people would buy the contract like you would a stock. It's undervalued. Okay, what happens if the option is actually worth 85 cents? Well, either you would leave it alone or you could sell it short. You would think that it's going to eventually go down to its value of 85 cents. But that's what this is. Okay, and I want to just explain two other things, and this video will be short. So let me show you. Eraser here, erase. Kind of cool. All right, so you're seeing where it's highly statistical, highly mathematical, these calculations. So you see where it's got ND1 and ND2. That's not an N times D1. So technically it's the normal cumulative probability distribution. I know that's a mouthful. If this is a normal distribution, you learn that from statistics, and we have a value that's right here. You're talking about the normal distribution, the normal cumulative. Okay, so we would say all of the area under the curve up to this particular point, or whatever number that is, of a number. So the n of d1 is like, if you remember when you were first studying algebra, you would say f of x, that's some function of x, that's not f of value times x. So this is it. So when we would calculate D1 and calculate D2, then we would have this normal probability distribution because you'd have numbers there for D1 and D2. And wherever they fell along the number line, that would be meaningful. So, okay, here's D1, or N of D1. Both of these guys are going to produce a 4-digit, generally a decimal and 4 numbers. So let's say ND1 is going to equal 88.8855. I'm making something up, but it would be a number, pretty much 4 or 5 digits, something like that, and it would be a decimal. Okay, so that's 88.55%, or it actually means what the ND1 is called the delta, the options delta, and that's where the calculus would come in, and we're avoiding that in this class because it's not within the scope of the course. What we can talk about it a little bit and understand a little bit better. Now, all the time we were talking about options, I said that every option contract controls 100 shares, but not all contracts are going to get exercised. So the option trader, the person at the Chicago Board Options Exchange, pretend that you and I want to buy a bunch of calls because we think the price of the stock is going to go up. So we buy about 10 in the money calls. It's like, no, I'm going to take advantage of it. They report earnings tonight. The stock is going to go up and I'm going to make a little money on it. Well, who sold those to you? Either some other investor or the trader on the option exchange. Well, the trader knows that he just sold 10 naked calls. Now, any one of those has unlimited loss. So 10 of them would be 10 times an unlimited loss, in which case that's a big number. So he wants to know, well, I don't want to have naked calls. So this trader would say, well, I'm just going to buy the shares to make it covered calls. And then my position is covered. Then I've hedged my position. We've got an investor out there, you or me, that bought 10 calls, and we're just speculating. Well, that person wants to cover his position, the person that's doing the opposite side of the trade. But there's got to be a way. He needs to save some money. The easiest way to do it would be to buy 1,000 shares, and that would cover you 10 calls. But that's going through a lot of money. 1,000 shares might be a lot of money. And he's saying, well, what if, is there a way I could better understand this options delta, meaning the rate of change of the stock versus the rate of change of the price of the option? And what the ND1 is telling that person or telling anybody that uses Black-Scholes, really you only need about 89 shares, 88.5, and we could round that up to 89 shares. You only need 89 shares to buy for every contract you sold, and then you would be decently hedged because not all contracts are going to be exercised. Some are going to fall off the table. So with this person that's doing this all day, every day, he wants to save some money. The ultimate way would just be to buy the 1,000, but it's like, well, what if I only have to buy 890 for the 10 contracts? That saves him some money to do put on the next trade. So that's called the options delta. Okay, and it's important to the trader. It's important to somebody that wants to hedge their position. It gives them an idea of how many shares they have to buy to properly hedge their position, given all the changes that are occurring inside of this equation. Okay, so the ND2, that's going to be a similar thing. That's going to come out with a number. So let's say I'm going to make up some numbers again. Let's say it's 6565. Just making stuff up, guys. All right, this is 65.7%. Or you could say, well, what is this? This is the percent chance that the option that you're talking about is going to expire in the money. So there's about a 67% chance that it's going to expire in the money, given the volatility, given its place against the stock, given a strike price, given here's a present value of a single sum. Present value of a single sum under continuous compounding, PERT, if you remember that. That's something that we covered in time value. So would anybody be worried about this? Of course you would, because if the option expires in the money and you have bought that option, it's going to get exercised. You don't have to do anything. So would you be interested to know what percentage chance? Now, if it was a 20% chance that an option is going to be expire in the money, you would feel a little bit differently than if it was a 90% chance that the option is going to expire in the money. So guys, that's what the Black-Scholes is giving to really the professional, the person that's doing this on large volume, understanding what's going on in the option market, understanding that what the rates of change, that's a calculus conversation. Whenever you talk about the rate of change, that's a calculus problem. And this is just absolutely jam-packed with it. Doesn't look like it from here, but if you would go a little bit further and you could Google it and look into that a little bit more if you so desire, but that would be an advanced subject, okay, to go into the depth of the Black-Scholes model. So really, that's what I wanted to say. 3 things, 4 actually. It's going to determine, the formula is going to give you the value of the call. So it's an option valuation. We talked about the 5 ingredients of what determines an option price. That's 2. Talked about the options delta, the ND1. Okay, that's going to say how many shares are required to hedge each contract, each sale. And we talked about ND2. That's going to be what? The percentage. It's going to give you a number, and it's going to be a percentage chance that the option will expire in the money. Because again, that's worth it for people want to know that if they're holding contracts. So that's it. From a testing standpoint, those would be, you're not doing any calculations at all. I'd be asking you a question that cover this, and that's what it would be. It would be like, tell me what some of these things are. Just by a multiple choice, no calculations necessary. Okay, so I hope that made sense to us.